know that faulty software costs the U.S. economy like a crazy $2 trillion back in 2020?
Wow, 2 trillion.
Yeah, that's enough to buy everyone in Hungary like a lifetime supply of paprika. It's kind of insane.
Paprika for life. That's a pretty good visual.
It really shows how important software testing is, especially in like the finance world.
Yeah, for sure.
So today we're going to do a deep dive into test automation.
Cool.
And we've got a case study from a big bank.
Okay.
We'll be looking at a blog post about their project and also a company webpage that talks about their expertise in testing.
Awesome.
So the banking industry is all about, complex systems, and they're always changing. You mentioned like 4 to 8 major upgrades per year, right?
That's about right.
So it makes sense why test automation is becoming so important in banking.
Definitely. The need for speed and efficiency is only increasing.
Exactly. Imagine like cutting down testing time from weeks to hours for each of those upgrades.
Oh, yeah, that would be a game changer for sure.
And it's not just about speed. We're also talking about being able to test things that would be impossible to do manually, like simulating thousands of customers, all using the system at the same time.
Right.
So the bank in our case study was dealing with over 400 manual test cases.
Wow, that's a lot.
And they were really struggling with that. They teamed up with this company, DSS Consulting, to automate those tests. And they used something called the UiPath platform.
Okay. Interesting.
And I thought it was interesting that the bank specifically asked for UiPath, so it seems like they already knew about it and maybe even liked it.
Yeah, that makes sense. If they had a good experience with it before, they'd probably want to stick with what they know works.
Right. So do you think they chose UiPath because it's like easy to use, especially with such complex systems? Or were there other reasons?
Yeah, ease of use is definitely a factor, especially when you're dealing with those really intricate processes. But UiPath is also really good at integrating with other testing tools.
Oh.
And that's really important for a bank. They probably use a lot of different tech.
Right. So it's like having a central command for all your testing.
Exactly.
That makes sense. And you're not just automating the clicks, you're making the whole testing workflow smoother.
Yeah, exactly. And the blog post even talked about how they automated the reporting, too.
Oh, cool. So they could see how the testing was going in real time.
Yep. And it would, flag any potential issues right away.
That's smart.
Yeah.
It's like having an automated dashboard.
Exactly.
But I guess even with the right tools, it's not like you just set it up and forget about it.
Right.
DSS Consulting still had to figure out the best approach for each of those test cases, right?
Yeah, that's
Like some scripts might have actually overloaded the system if they tried to run them too fast.
Right. It's about finding that balance between speed and not crashing the system.
Right, so you can't just crank everything up to the max.
Exactly. It's like, finding the right recipe. You can't just blast the oven temperature and expect a perfect cake.
Haha,
No.
true. So you mentioned DSS Consulting. Their webpage is pretty impressive. They work with all kinds of different tools.
Yeah, it's quite a list. They've got Selenium, JMeter, UiPath, obviously, Cypress, Rest Assured.
Wow. They're not just sticking to one thing. They seem to be able to adapt to different systems. Let's break down the types of tests you can automate. It seems like there are a lot of different options.
Yeah, there are quite a few. We already touched on unit tests, where you look at individual components. Then you have integration tests, which make sure that different parts of the software are working together properly.
So like making sure your ATM network can talk to your core banking system without any problems.
Exactly. It's all about making sure everything is connected and communicating smoothly.
Right.
Then there are regression tests, which are really important after any update. They make sure that nothing's broken.
Okay, so they're like a safety net.
Exactly. Then we have performance tests, like what we were talking about with JMeter, where you simulate heavy user loads.
Right, to see how the system holds up under pressure.
Exactly. And then you have security tests, which are all about protecting your systems from vulnerabilities that hackers could exploit.
So it's like a multi-layered defense system for your software.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it.
It's really interesting how this whole concept of test automation can be used in different industries. I was reading on the DSS Consulting webpage about how they helped a pharmaceutical company test a molecule registry system for drug research.
Right.
And they also worked with an energy company to streamline hundreds of test cases. And they've even designed test cases for a big insurance company. It's pretty amazing how adaptable this concept is.
Yeah, it really shows how widespread the need for efficient testing is becoming.
It really does. So software is evolving all the time, and it seems like the way we test it needs to evolve too. What do you think is next for automated testing? Where is this all headed?
Well, that's a great question and a topic for our next section.
Okay, sounds good.
Yeah, I'm excited to dive into that. That's the big question, isn't it?
It is.
Both the blog post and the DSS website talk about AI and machine learning.
Yeah.
They hint that those will be really important for the future of testing.
Interesting.
Like, imagine automated tests. They can actually learn from past results.
Wow.
They could adapt to changes in the software and even, like, predict problems before they happen.
So it's like having a test automation system that's constantly getting smarter.
Exactly. And that's not all.
Okay.
There are also these big advancements in data analysis and how we're using test data.
Okay.
It's changing how we find and fix bugs, making the whole process super efficient.
So it sounds like the future of automated testing is about working smarter, not harder.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
So manual testing will always have its place, right?
Yeah, especially when you're talking about the user experience.
Okay.
But the future is definitely leaning towards more automation.
So for someone working in, like, finance, why should they care about all this? What does it mean for them?
Well, if you're involved in software development at all,
Okay.
like if you're a developer, a project manager, or even a business owner, you need to understand test automation.
It's not really optional anymore.
It's essential.
Yeah.
It's like that saying,
That's
adapt or become obsolete.
Right. Makes sense.
Remember that bank in the case study?
Yeah.
They were able to cut down testing time, save money, and end up with much more reliable software.
Yeah, I remember.
Those are wins that any financial institution would love.
Yeah, for sure.
It's a win-win for everyone, happier users, and a more efficient way to develop software.
Definitely.
And those wins are only going to get bigger as AI and machine learning keep advancing.
Okay, so that all sounds great, but there have to be some challenges, right?
You're absolutely right.
What are some of the trade-offs or potential problems with test automation?
Yeah, test automation is a powerful tool, but it's not like a magic solution. One of the biggest challenges is the initial investment.
You mean like the cost of setting everything up?
Exactly.
Yeah.
You need the right tools. You need people who know how to use them.
Mm-hmm.
And it takes time to design and actually implement the tests.
So for some organizations, especially if they're just starting out, that can seem pretty daunting.
Definitely. But there's a long-term return on that investment.
Right, because of those efficiency gains we were talking about.
Exactly.
Okay.
But it's important to be realistic.
Yeah.
It's not like automation is going to magically solve all your testing problems right away.
So it takes time.
It does.
It's a marathon, not a sprint.
Precisely. Another potential pitfall is becoming too reliant on automation.
Okay.
It's easy to start thinking that your automated tests are finding everything.
Right, that they're perfect.
But remember those 10% of test cases that the bank couldn't automate?
Yeah.
That shows that sometimes you really do need a human involved.
Ah, so it's about balance.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Automated tests are great for regression testing, performance testing, all those repetitive things.
Right.
But when you're trying to figure out if something is easy to use,
Okay.
or if the user experience is good, you often need a human's intuition and judgment.
So it's like comparing a robot chef to like a real chef.
I like that analogy.
They both have their strengths,
Yeah,
but sometimes you just need that human touch.
exactly. The bank realized that some tests were just too complicated
Okay.
or too nuanced for automation.
I see. Do we know what kinds of tests those were?
The blog post didn't go into detail,
Oh,
but I guess they were tests that involved complex decision-making
okay.
or, things where you need a subjective opinion, things that automation isn't good at.
So even in an increasingly automated world, human expertise is still important.
Absolutely.
So how does test automation impact the whole software development process?
That's a great question. Test automation is a key part of something called continuous integration and continuous delivery.
Oh, I've heard of that, CI/CD.
Exactly.
Can you break that down for our listener?
Sure. Think of CI/CD like an assembly line for making software.
Okay.
So developers make changes,
Mm-hmm.
and those changes are automatically built and tested.
Okay.
And if everything passes the tests, they're sent out to users, all without much human intervention.
That's cool.
It's a continuous flow, making sure that new features and updates get to the users quickly and reliably.
It's like a well-oiled machine.
Exactly.
And where does test automation fit in?
It's the quality control part of that assembly line, making sure that each change is thoroughly tested before it moves on.
So test automation isn't just about making testing faster, it's also about making this whole CI/CD thing possible,
Precisely.
leading to a more efficient development process.
Exactly. And as test automation keeps evolving,
Yeah.
we can expect it to become even more integrated with these CI/CD pipelines,
Okay.
which will further streamline software development,
That's great.
making sure software is always improving.
So it's like a positive feedback loop.
It is. Now, we've been talking a lot about the technical stuff,
Yeah.
but we shouldn't forget about reporting and documentation in test automation.
It's not as exciting, but it's important, right?
It is, yeah.
It's easy to overlook.
It is. But without good reporting and documentation, it's like doing an experiment and then losing all your data.
Oh, yeah.
You need to be able to track what happened in your tests,
Okay.
see if there were any problems,
Right.
and then share all that information with the team.
So it's not just about automating the tests, it's also about automating the insights you get from them.
Precisely. Remember how the bank automated their reporting process?
Yeah.
That meant they could create custom reports with just the information they needed.
Oh, that's really smart.
It is. And this is an area where we can expect to see more innovation.
Oh, how so?
AI and machine learning can be used to analyze those test results,
Okay.
find patterns, and generate reports that give you actionable insights.
So it's like having a data scientist on your testing team.
Exactly. But even with all this automation, human judgment is still crucial.
Okay.
You still need people to interpret those results, understand what they mean, and make informed decisions.
So it's really about that collaboration between human intelligence and machine efficiency.
Absolutely.
Now let's talk about security testing.
Okay.
Cyber attacks are getting more and more sophisticated.
Yeah.
I bet that's a big worry for financial institutions.
Definitely. But luckily, test automation is a key part of making software more secure.
Interesting. How so?
Think of it like this.
Okay.
Imagine you have automated tests that are constantly checking your systems,
Okay.
looking for any weaknesses that hackers could take advantage of.
So it's like having a 247 security team.
Yeah, that's a good way to picture it.
That makes sense.
These tests can actually mimic real-world attacks,
Wow.
testing the software's defenses and finding any weak points before the bad guys can get in.
So it's like a game of cat and mouse.
It is.
But we're using automation to stay ahead of the hackers.
Exactly.
That's awesome.
And this is especially important for institutions like yours that deal with sensitive financial data.
Right. It's super important.
The case study didn't talk much about security testing,
Yeah.
but I'm sure DSS Consulting made it a top priority, given how important it is for banks.
That makes sense.
It's like building a bank vault. You wouldn't skimp on the security measures.
No, definitely not.
And the same goes for your digital systems.
So we've talked a lot about the technical aspects of test automation, but what about its broader impact?
Oh, you mean like how it affects society as a whole?
Exactly. It's not just about better software. It's about transforming entire industries.
That's a really interesting point. Test automation can help developers focus on creating new, innovative features.
Okay.
It speeds up the pace of innovation because all the time-consuming testing is automated.
It's like test automation is removing roadblocks for developers, letting them work more freely and creatively.
Precisely. And this leads to breakthroughs in all sorts of fields: healthcare, education, finance.
Wow. So test automation is about more than just making software better. It's about improving our lives.
Exactly.
That's powerful. But what about the people involved in software development? How does all of this affect jobs and careers?
That's a very important question to consider. Whenever automation comes up, people naturally wonder if their jobs are at risk.
I can understand that.
It's true that the job market will change as automation becomes more common.
Okay.
But instead of thinking about it as robots replacing people, think of it as jobs evolving.
So manual testers might not be clicking through test cases as much anymore.
Right.
Instead, they'll need to learn how to design and manage automated tests, analyze data, and work more closely with developers.
Exactly. And those are highly valuable skills.
So it's not about fearing automation. It's about learning how to use it to our advantage.
I completely agree. It's like when ATMs were first introduced. They didn't replace bank tellers. They just freed them up to do more specialized work.
That's a good point.
To wrap up, I encourage everyone listening to think critically about test automation. Embrace the potential, but be aware of the limitations.
Right.
And never forget that software development is ultimately about people.
I like that. Well, this has been a great conversation.
It has.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into test automation.
It was my pleasure.
Hopefully everyone listening got some valuable insights.
I hope so.
And maybe even some new ideas for how they can use this technology in their own work.
It's been great sharing these thoughts with you.
Likewise. And to everyone out there, keep learning, keep experimenting, and keep pushing the boundaries of what's possible.
Until next time, happy testing.
See ya.